What kind of joke is this, a child? In the middle of an auto shop, during a corporate inspection. Mr. Davidson's voice sliced through the air like a blade, sharp, final. Every mechanic stopped. Tools froze mid-turn. Conversation died mid-sentence. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. 12-year-old Maya Thompson didn't flinch. She was crouched next to the open hood of a 2018 Chevrolet, one small hand wrapped around a wrench, the other steadying her balance on the bumper. Grease smudged her sleeve, a tiny streak lined her cheek, but her eyes calm, focused. 20 minutes earlier, she'd walked in after school just like she did every day. She came not to play, but to learn. Her father, Marcus Thompson, had run this shop for 15 years. He was respected, trusted, and now utterly terrified. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davidson," Marcus said quickly, stepping forward, voice tight. "She just stopped by to say hi. I told her not to." "Maya," he turned to his daughter, his voice dropping to a whisper, "go home. Now's not the time." But Davidson raised a hand. "Let the girl stay." The words didn't sound generous. They carried a curl of cruelty at the edges, like a trap disguised as a favor. A smile crept across Davidson's face, not the kind that reached the eyes. The kind that bared teeth. "I've got a better idea." Maya slowly rose to her feet. She didn't need anyone to explain what was happening. She'd seen that look before. In her school principal's eyes when she asked too many questions. In the grocery clerk's expression when she reached for a more expensive item. In the way some adults flinched at her intelligence, as if brilliance didn't belong to girls like her, black, young, and from the wrong side of the city. Davidson took a few slow steps across the shop floor. His tailored suit looked absurd next to oil-stained concrete and hydraulic lifts. The sound of his polished shoes against the ground was the only noise in the entire room. "You know, Marcus," he said casually, "your little girl looks real confident with that wrench, like she actually believes she knows what she's doing." He stopped near the back, lifting the tarp off a sleek silver vehicle. A 2022 Porsche 911. "This car's been here 3 days. None of your team could figure it out. Not even the guys I sent from my other branches. It won't start. We can't even run a diagnostic." He turned facing the room now, arms wide like a showman before the big trick. "How about we give our little expert a chance?" Silence hit the room like a bomb. The 8 mechanics exchanged wary glances. Even Tony Martinelli, the veteran with 30 years under his belt, looked uncomfortable. The Porsche had stumped everyone. None of them had gotten past the dead engine block. "Mr. Davidson, she's just a kid," Marcus said, voice low, pleading. "Exactly," Davidson replied, chuckling. "A kid who I'm told spends all day playing with engines. She must know as much as your team, right?" Maya stood quietly, hands at her sides. Inside, a familiar spark ignited, the same one that lit up when she cracked math problems others couldn't solve. The same one she felt when her neighbor's radio came back to life under her fingertips. The shop watched her. "All right," Maya said, her voice steady. "I accept." Davidson clapped slowly, mockingly. "You hear that, boys? The little prodigy accepts. Tell you what, if she figures it out, I'll not only keep this place open, I'll give everyone here a bonus." He grinned like a man who thought he'd already won. "And if she fails, well, I think you know what happens." Maya stepped toward the Porsche, and in that moment, something in her changed. She wasn't just a kid anymore. She was the only one in the room who knew exactly what she was walking into. And what she was about to do would not only decide the fate of her father's shop, it would expose a truth no one in that building was ready to hear. Maya circled the Porsche slowly. Every step was deliberate, every glance calculated. She wasn't just observing the car, she was reading it like a language only she could understand. Davidson leaned back against a tool chest, arms crossed, that smug grin never leaving his face. "Is this going to take long? Princess, some of us have real work to do." The mechanics hovered nearby, forming an uncertain semicircle. Their expressions ranged from pity to curiosity. Some still couldn't believe Davidson was serious. Others couldn't believe Maya had said yes. Tony Martinelli whispered under his breath to Marcus, "This ain't right, man. She's just a kid." Marcus didn't look away from his daughter. "If I step in now," he muttered through clenched teeth, "he shuts down the shop." And so Maya was alone. Or at least that's what it looked like. But she didn't need anyone else. Her fingers, small and sure, moved from one component to the next. The ignition system, the fuel lines, the wiring harness. Her process was systematic, not random. Her eyes darted from junction to fuse, noting each connection. Where others had seen a locked puzzle, Maya saw patterns. From a distance it may have looked like pretend, but Tony noticed something. The order she followed it wasn't child's play. It was professional. In fact, it was exactly the diagnostic sequence he would have used. Interesting, Maya whispered to herself. Davidson chuckled. What's the matter? Realize it's more complicated than your toy cars. But Maya didn't even blink. Instead, she crouched and pointed at a small black box tucked near the firewall. It was no larger than a phone charger and wired into the car's brain. This module here, she said. Have you checked whether it's sending the correct codes to the central system? Silence? No one spoke. Tony's brow furrowed. That was a new component. One only introduced in the last year. Most mechanics hadn't encountered it much yet. Of course, we checked that. Davidson scoffed. We checked everything. This car needs real expertise, sweetheart. Something you don't get from cartoons and coloring books. Maya nodded, not in submission but acknowledgement. That makes sense, she said. It's just, I remember reading about that module a few months ago. She stopped. Too late. The words had already left her lips. You read about it where Tony asked, his voice suddenly filled with interest. Maya hesitated, then looked at her dad. Marcus raised an eyebrow, caught off guard like everyone else. In the technical manuals. From the office, she said sheepishly, when you weren't looking, Dad. I borrowed them. Sometimes I use a translator app to get through the hard parts. Marcus blinked. Maya, those manuals are for certified mechanics. I know, she replied, but the diagrams made sense, and there are YouTube videos that explain some of the new components. Davidson burst out laughing, loud and scornful. Oh, this just gets better. The girl thinks YouTube University is all it takes to fix a Porsche. He turned to the others, waving his hand like a conductor. You hear this? She's going to fix a $200,000 car with her phone and Google. But Maya didn't respond. She was too busy checking a wire cluster near the ECU. Her focus was surgical. The direct injection system on this model has a failsafe, she said, now clearly in command of the conversation. If the control module doesn't detect the correct digital signature, it kills the ignition entirely. It's a theft deterrent system. Tony stepped closer. Digital signature, Maya nodded. Each component has a unique code. If the car's computer thinks a part's been changed without authorization, it locks everything down. Jake, the youngest mechanic, cleared his throat. I've never heard of that. You wouldn't, Maya replied kindly. Most courses haven't updated their manuals yet. But the newest documentation covers it. It's all there. Davidson's amusement was rapidly eroding, his jaw clenched. Enough with the trivia. Either get the car running or admit you're in over your head. Maya stood up straight. Her voice was cool. I'll need 15 minutes. And a computer with internet access. A computer, Marcus asked, baffled. For what? To download the reprogramming software, Maya replied as if it were obvious. To reset the digital signature. It's not hard, you just have to know where to look. Davidson's face reddened. You think I'm letting a child mess with the electronics of a six-figure vehicle? That's when Tony stepped forward. Let her try, he said firmly. You were going to junk the car anyway, weren't you? If she fails, you lose nothing. If she succeeds... He paused. You get a working Porsche. Maya looked up at Tony. The briefest smile crossed her lips. A silent thank you. What no one in that room realized was that for 6 months, Maya had been quietly studying advanced automotive systems. Not out of ambition, not out of rebellion, out of hunger. For truth, for understanding, for the knowledge others assumed was beyond her reach. Davidson, who had been so eager to laugh at her, had just opened the door to something he could never control. And Maya, she was just getting started. 15 minutes, Maya repeated softly, setting her laptop on the rolling diagnostic cart. Davidson scoffed, but the sound lacked conviction. Something in Maya's quiet certainty was beginning to gnaw at him, like a thread unraveling his entire narrative. She connected a custom adapter to the Porsche's onboard diagnostic port, then plugged in her laptop. The screen lit up with code, and her fingers began moving with speed and precision. not the aimless clicking of a child pretending. These were practiced commands executed like muscle memory. Tony leaned in, eyes narrowing. "She's not guessing," he murmured to Jake. "She knows exactly what she's doing." Marcus stood frozen behind the line of mechanics. His heart was racing, unsure whether it was out of pride, fear, or something deeper wonder. "Dad," Maya said without looking up. "Remember when I told you I was studying those manuals?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I wasn't just studying," she said, voice calm. "I was hacking." A sharp inhale passed through the room like a gust of wind. Someone dropped a socket wrench. Davidson's face drained of color. "What did you just say?" he demanded. Maya continued typing, unfazed. "6 months ago, I hacked into NA Porsche's diagnostic system. Not to steal anything," she added quickly, sensing the surge of alarm, "but because I wanted to understand why so many cars kept coming in with the same problem no one could fix." "You're lying," Davidson barked, stepping forward. "No," Maya replied, still working. "You just underestimated how much I wanted to learn." Lines of code scrolled across her screen. Data packets, diagnostic bypass requests, recalibration prompts. She was rewriting firmware like she'd done it 100 times. "This particular Porsche," she continued, "has the same issue as 17 other cars that came through Wilcor-affiliated garages over the last 8 months. She tapped a key. Do you want to know why? Davidson crossed his arms again, but his shoulders were too stiff now. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. "I'm not implying anything," Maya said. "I'm proving it." She spun the laptop around. The screen displayed a spreadsheet, dozens of VIN numbers, repair logs, timestamps, and geographic locations. Every car failed within 90 days of ignition. Every single one had been flagged with an identical fault code sequence. Tony moved closer, reading. "These are real entries." "Completely real," Maya confirmed. "And here's the most interesting part." She clicked into another folder. Contracts, purchase logs, emails, internal memos. All of these defective vehicles were quietly bought back by Porsche, patched with a single line of reprogrammed code, and then resold as refurbished, with profit margins of over 300%. Davidson's face was now a storm of red and grey. He reached for the laptop, but Tony stepped between them. "Where did you get these?" Davidson demanded. This is confidential information." Maya smiled, for the first time since it all began. "From the same place that told me you receive a 15% commission for every unsolved repair that your shops can't fix." Gasps rippled through the room. "No," Davidson growled, his voice cracking. "That's a lie." You can't prove I can," Maya interrupted, opening another window. "I hacked your corporate email account last week." The screen showed hundreds of emails between Davidson and executives at Porsche NA. Instructions, strategy breakdowns, coordinated failures. The full scope of the scheme laid bare. Marcus stepped closer, eyes scanning the texts. His voice shook, not with fear, but rage. "You knew," he whispered. "All this time, you knew how to fix those cars." "He didn't just know," Maya said. "He instructed people not to fix them." She clicked one more message. A memo from Davidson Keep team focused on standard diagnostics. Avoid software-level interventions. Declare unsalvageable after 48 hours. Jake looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "You made us look like idiots. Like we didn't care. Like we weren't good at our jobs." Davidson's face contorted in desperation. "She's a hacker, a criminal. She broke the law. You can't trust anything. She says she's a child." But Maya remained composed. "Maybe," she said, eyes locked on him. "But you'll have to trust them." She tapped a key. The screen switched to a live video. The workshop's Facebook page, broadcasting in real time, comments pouring in like a flood. "That's the guy who said my car was unfixable. My sister lost her job because of this scam. Is this fraud? Someone call the FBI." Davidson stumbled backward. Maya calmly closed the laptop. "I started the broadcast as soon as I plugged in," she said, her voice soft. "The world deserved to know why your shops never fixed anything." Tony let out a long breath, eyes wide. "You recorded everything." Every word, she confirmed. Davidson looked around the room, at the men who once feared him, now glaring with disgust. At Marcus, at Maya, finally at the door. "Why?" he asked hoarsely. "Why would you do this?" Maya tilted her head, thoughtful. "Because you looked at me and saw a poor black girl with grease on her hands and assumed I couldn't be a threat." She took a breath. Her voice was calm but carved in stone. You gave me the opportunity to prove you wrong. And I was ready. Outside, the rising sound of sirens tore through the afternoon air. Davidson's final gamble had crumbled, dismantled not by a rival executive or a court order, but by the daughter of a mechanic. The sirens grew louder, winding through the narrow city blocks like a countdown. Everyone in the garage stood still, not in panic, but in revelation. Davidson's empire wasn't collapsing, it had already fallen. All that remained was the echo of his failure. He stared at Maya as if seeing her for the first time, not as a child, not as a prop in his power games, but as the mind that had outsmarted him publicly and irreversibly. She didn't gloat, she didn't smirk. She simply stood there, shoulders square, as if she had always belonged exactly where she was. The automatic doors slid open, and two officers entered. Davidson turned instinctively, taking a step back. "Mr. Davidson," one said, holding out a folder. "You're under investigation for corporate fraud, obstruction of consumer protection statutes, and wire fraud across state lines. We'll need you to come with us." "What, you can't? I'm the victim here." Davidson's voice cracked, desperate now. She hacked company systems. She broke the law. One of the officers glanced at Maya, then back at Davidson. She also handed over direct evidence of a nationwide fraud scheme, including emails from your account. As the cuffs clicked shut around Davidson's wrists, he stared one last time at the girl who had undone him. "I hope you're proud." Maya's reply was simple. "I'm not proud you got caught. I'm proud I didn't let you keep winning." They led him out through the same door he had strutted through hours earlier, now just another man with nothing left but excuses. The shop remained silent for a moment after he was gone. Then slowly, reality returned. The mechanics turned toward Maya, not with pity or disbelief, but with something deeper respect. Tony stepped forward and placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "You didn't just fix the car, kid," he said. "You fixed all of us." 3 months later. The conference room overlooking Seattle's skyline glowed with natural light. Maya stood at the head of a table, surrounded by executives from Tesla, Google, Microsoft. Her presentation had just ended, and the room was still applauding. Jennifer Walsh, VP of Engineering at Tesla, leaned forward. "Maya, your fraud detection proposal is groundbreaking. We'd like to offer you a consulting contract to begin integrating the system into our service platform. Starting off at $2 million. The men and women around the table nodded, stunned by the clarity and simplicity of the system the 12-year-old had designed. But Maya's mind wasn't in that room. Not fully. She thought about her father, about the tiny office, where she first read those thick manuals in secret, about the stares, the doubts, the way Davidson had mocked her. She smiled. "Thank you," she said, "but I need to discuss it with my family first, and I have one condition." The room leaned in. "I want part of this project to be developed in my father's shop with his team. Tony, Jake, Eduardo, they were part of this. They deserve to stay part of it." The executives exchanged glances, surprised but respectful. Jennifer smiled. "We can make that happen." Across the city, Davidson sat alone in a one-bedroom apartment, watching the news through the glow of an old television. His life had unraveled, his assets gone, his marriage dissolved, and his name forever tied to disgrace. On screen, a headline ran beneath a clip of Maya receiving a National Innovation Award, from mechanic's daughter to industry visionary. Davidson muttered to himself, ruined by a child, but the world had moved on without him. Back at Central Motors, now renamed Thompson and Daughter, automotive tech reporters gathered as Maya demonstrated her new diagnostic interface. Young people from local schools watched in awe. Her non-profit Clean Codes had begun offering free training in advanced vehicle systems for underrepresented youth. Maya stepped away from the crowd for a moment and found her father waiting by the coffee station. "Dad," she said, "remember when you told me I should study more and stop tinkering with engines?" Marcus laughed, his eyes gleaming with pride. "Looks like you were studying the whole time." Tony appeared holding a tablet. "Hey boss, the new update's running smooth. This thing, it's revolutionary." Maya shrugged. "It's just about seeing things others ignore." Jake nodded beside him. "You didn't just give us tech, Maya, you gave us fairness." 6 months after the scandal, Maya's fraud detection system had been adopted in over 2,000 shops nationwide. Her story had reached millions, but her mission remained personal. In a packed school auditorium, a young boy raised his hand during a Q&A session. Maya, weren't you scared to stand up to him? He was powerful. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Yes, he had money, influence, control over my father's future. But he made one big mistake. What was it? He confused power with intelligence, and he confused my appearance with incompetence. She looked out at the crowd of kids, some wide-eyed, some already clenching their fists with purpose. When you're underestimated, she continued, you gain something rare, the power of surprise. He never saw me coming, so he never protected himself. A girl in the back raised her hand. But what if you had failed? Maya smiled. I couldn't, because I didn't accept the challenge until I already knew the answer. She took a deep breath. The best revenge, she said, is becoming so exceptional that they can't ignore you, and so principled that you don't need to destroy them. They destroy themselves. 2 years later, Maya, now a rising engineer at MIT's gifted program, ran her consulting firm remotely. Her nonprofit reached thousands of students. Her story became a case study in both computer science ethics and corporate accountability. Davidson, meanwhile, attempted to return to the industry, only to be rejected repeatedly. The last time anyone saw him, he was applying for a part-time job at a repair shop that declined him with 2 words. We remember, and Maya, she became a name not just associated with genius, but with justice. The girl who was challenged to fix an impossible engine ended up rebuilding the entire system that dared to doubt her. She wasn't supposed to win. She was supposed to stumble, to crack under pressure, to serve as a punchline in someone else's narrative of power. But instead, Maya rewrote the entire story. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't throw punches. She didn't beg to be taken seriously. She prepared. She studied. She waited. And when the moment came, when all eyes were on her, waiting for her to prove she didn't belong, she taught the room what brilliance looks like when it's underestimated for too long. Maya's story isn't just about genius, it's about justice. It's about what happens when the world tells someone they're too young, too black, too small to matter, and that someone proves the world wrong with facts, with fire, and with grace. If this story made you feel something, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. Never underestimate someone who's been overlooked.